Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Arkansas Outdoors Roundup. Today, I have an interesting topic for you. Excuse me. One that will be of interest to a lot of people in the state of Arkansas. It's a very popular topic, and there's been a lot of news lately with uh, this particular topic. So I want to definitely go over that in some detail. I have quite a few things I want to show you and discuss with you today. The topic I'm referring to is the topic of mountain biking, or more generally, biking in Arkansas. Over the last few years, there have been numerous cities across the state that have increased and spent a lot of money on building bike trails and bike facilities around the state. It has become quite the popular phenomenon, and particularly in the area of Northwest Arkansas, where I live, in up around Bella Vista, there's been a lot of work done to improve and create a lot of bike trails. And I want to look at those today and talk about those with you. And I hope you find this topic interesting. It is having a profound effect uh, uh, on all aspects of life up here. I can't speak for every place across the state, but I can talk to you with firsthand information about what it's doing to the economy here and to the outdoor um, hobbies, I guess you could say, of folks around here. It's been quite popular, and we're going to take a pretty good look at that today. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, the first little slide I have here for you is just a picture of the of a magazine called Bike Arkansas. I think it's part of another magazine called Outside Magazine. I think is where it comes from. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see more of that, but I think that's the name of it. uh, but Bike Arkansas, and you see a picture of a guy there. And the storyline here, as you can tell, is Dash and Dine. People riding around Arkansas, and they will tend to ride on greenways and other trails. And a lot of these parks, these bike parks and places, have restaurants along the way that people stop and drink and get something to eat, and it's a lot of fun. Here's another advertisement you see here. You see one for Bella Vista on the right, and it says where the big kids play. And then on the other side, you see write it out, reel it in, eat it up. Gaston's, in case you don't know, is a very well known fly fishing, or just trout fishing in general, resort up on the White River. And you see a lot of, people go there to recreate. And you see right there in the ad at the bottom, it says perfect for anglers, foodies, and trail seekers. Okay, on this slide, you see two items I've labeled here. And on the left side, it talks about the NICA generates 2 million in economic impact. And what this story is basically getting to is the money that has been put into riding clubs and particularly youth organizations, and how that has generated about a $2 million economic impact just from these groups, these youth groups that have been formed and have taken up the biking, the sport of biking, I should say, or the hobby. And it talks about the positive impact it has had on these particular individuals and the economy as a whole. On the right side is an interesting one. It's more focused on businesses around the world. And what they're doing is they are bringing in different organizations from across the world to look at the biking uh, trails and how mountain biking and biking in general is being developed here, so that these companies can go back and get a feel for what their consumers might want to have. So they get all sorts of ideas and information about bike riders here in Arkansas, and they take that information back home with them, and their particular company will work on products geared toward what they think bikers want. So it's a definitely a economic interest that they have about Northwest Arkansas and Arkansas in general. Here again, you see another advertisement. It says, "You have to ride it. Welcome to the mountain biking capital of the world." And that is not hyperbole. That is a very accurate statement. You have people from all over the world coming here and participating in bike riding in Northwest Arkansas. As part of the phenomenon of Arkansas bike riding, here you see on this slide and on a few others, you're going to see different events, different clubs you have right here. You have the Bella Vista Cyclists, the Conway Bike Club, Saline County Cyclist, the Crank It Up Cycling Group. And so you have all of these groups, I should say, enthusiasts who are getting together and starting clubs in their particular part of the state to enjoy the sport of bike riding. Here are a calendar of events. You see some here. This was in May, late May. Most of these are from May, and then early June, mid June, last week. And they have all sorts of clever names. It says Oz Stage Race, Ride Your Damn Bike Festival, the Skirmish, Avoca Race Series, Cruisin' Cleveland County, Bentonville Bike Fest. So you have all of these different events going on that people come out and ride in. Here again, I'm not going to go through each of these, but you get the idea here. More and more groups out there that are participating in these activities surrounding mountain biking and biking in general. Uh, One form of biking I haven't mentioned that's very popular, you have mountain biking, and then you have greenway bike trails, and then you also have a kind of biking called gravel riding, and that's a very popular one. Those are more for the long distance riders. Gravel rides can be, anywhere from 30 to 130 miles, depending on what the nature of the course is. Again, you see another little advertisement here that says Arkansas Delta. The Arkansas Delta is basically east of Little Rock. If you were to divide the state in half, uh, going down right down the middle of Little Rock and north and south of there, anything to the east is going to be considered the Delta, and it's very flat over there. A lot of farmland, soybeans, wheat crops, and things of that sort. I imagine it's very good bike riding country because you don't have a whole lot of hills, so you don't have many people. I mean, up here, you have a lot of people struggling, up and down these hills. I've personally gone through them myself, and these hills can be tough up here. Down there, that's not so much of a problem, which is probably a nice situation. Now, here is the Arkansas Outside. That's the name of the magazine I was trying to remember. And it's a very good publication. I recommend you pick up a copy, subscribe to it. You get a lot of really good information here about what's going on in the Arkansas outdoors. But I want to go through this and just kind of talk a little bit about some of the comments they're making here. You see the headlines here. It says Arkansas Cycling Renaissance, how mountain biking and gravel riding are transforming the state. And again, that's very true. It talks about the economic impact, cycling fuels growth in Arkansas. They throw out a few numbers here. You see the total economic impact of $159 million driven by tourism, local employment, and tax revenue. Biking businesses contributed over 100 million in revenue, supporting 743 jobs and generating 6.1 million in state and local taxes. Now, if you saw my first episode a couple weekends ago, you I threw out a number of about 10 billion. Well, that's total tourism dollars. Here we're just talking about just mountain biking specifically, and the total number there is 159 million uh, in total impact just from the biking industry alone. It says trail building boom, shorter trails, bigger impact. There are lots of trails being built, and I'm going to focus in on one trail here recently that's been in the news. I'll do that here shortly. But you see examples here. You see Ward Lake in Mena, uh, in Searcy County, Boyle Park, Alsop Park. Boyle and Alsop are in Little Rock proper, and a lot of bike construction, trail construction, I should say, is occurring there. One of the uh, other projects that I want to talk about a little bit of toward the end is the Mena project. Lots of work is being done down around Mena, Arkansas, that area near the Ouachita Mountains, with regard to mountain biking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. You see the other name here, the Oz Trail Bike Park. I want to talk about that specifically. The Blue Mountain expansion. This is in the Little Rock area. If you if you go west of Pinnacle Mountain, there's a newly acquired stretch of land. It's called the Blue Mountain area, and it's open for hiking. And of course, it's also now being used for a lot of uh, bike riding as well. Uh, excuse me. Let's see, anything else in here? Talks a little more about gravel cycling, exploring the Delta and beyond. You have Crowley's Ridge gravel route, the Delta Heritage Trail. These are some of the main trails there in the Delta area of Arkansas, which is basically east of Little Rock. Events fueling the cycling surge. You have a lot of different events happening, and people are being introduced to this sport in all kinds of ways. So there's like I said, there's a lot of growth happening, a lot of advertisement being done, and groups are being formed. And this is interesting here. This little section says tourism and quality of life, a win-win for communities. We'll talk more about that also here in a little bit. E-bikes. Now, e-bikes have appeared on the scene, and based on what I have been reading, there is among mountain bikers, there is a feud brewing, if you will. The feud is uh, mountain bikers being, I'm sorry, e-bikers or e-bikes being on mountain bike trails. There is some sort of issue with that. I'm not exactly sure what the issue is, but there I have some comments that I'll show you a little later that kind of hint that the mountain bikers, the purists, if you will, are not too happy with many of the e-bikers, and has something to do with their bikes and things of this sort. I'm not exactly sure, like I said, but there is a little bit of a feud there. A lot of e-bikes on the greenways up here in Northwest Arkansas. You see them all over the place between Bentonville and Fayetteville. There's quite a few of those. And it concludes here by saying, looking ahead, a bright future for cycling in Arkansas. And I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of of increases in the cycling activity for this particular part, or not only for this particular part of the state, but for Arkansas generally. All right. Now, I'm going to switch gears here and talk about the new Oz Trail opening here in Bentonville, namely up in Bella Vista. And you see right here the this is from the city of Bella Vista Facebook page. It talks about this grand opening of the very first chairlift in Arkansas at the bike park, the Oz Bike Trail Park. And so let's just kind of quickly look, see what it says here. The big grand opening included several high profile individuals. You had Tom Walton and Arkansas's first gentleman, Brian Sanders, of course, Sarah Sanders' husband. Uh, Walton said, more people in nature and less people on screens. That's one of the positives of this particular bike park and the lift that has been being built there or has been built there. It says, when you invest in the outdoor recreation and quality of life, you invest in everyone. So they're they're really promoting this as something, as a way for people to get out into nature and getting them off their phones and off their computer screens. So I guess there's probably some truth in that, but there are also some other issues that I will address here a little bit later with regard to barriers to mountain biking and to biking in general. But and another thing that strikes me as kind of interesting, he says getting more people in nature. I Yes, technically you're outside, but I'm not quite so sure when he uses that word in nature, or that phrase in nature. I'm not quite sure that's what most people think of when they hear that phrase. When you hear the phrase in nature, bike park does not just pop to mind. It's not something that would be my first thought, or the first concept that would that would hold in my brain. But I get what they're saying, but uh, but I kind of wanted to detail that a little more. Okay, now this is the I'm sorry, Oz Bike Trails lift. You see there, you see the individuals. Uh, you see the governor, her husband, Walton individual, and city park managers, and you see everybody there with so much for getting them off their screens, right? They're taking pictures and all that sort of thing, which I don't blame them. If you're a mountain bike enthusiast, it's kind of a big deal in your world. So uh, that's what it looks like, kind of a close up. Uh, there are the chair lifts right back there in the back. This is another view. You see it has the different gates that you have to travel through the line, wait your turn. I'm not sure how fast this lift goes. I don't think it would probably be very fast, but it's I guess it saves you having to pedal back up this long hill and wearing yourself out. You can save your energy for the more challenging runs going downhill. And you know, again, purists will complain that, uh, part of enjoying mountain biking is having to go up the hills as well as enjoying going down the hills. So a lot of purists are going to make that particular type of argument as well. Okay, here's another shot of the ribbon cutting, and you see the individuals there. You see them on the lift down there in the lower left hand corner. They're doing take, I guess, the first ride up it. Now, this is from a magazine that I ran across, that I highlighted a few points in here that caught my eye. It says there, Northwest Arkansas uh, is the most celebrated mountain biking destination on the planet. I guess they're being a little hyperbolic there, but they're talking about this formula of creating all these parks and everything. It's going to make it a very important um, destination. I'm not sure on the planet necessarily, but it will be a big destination. It already is. That's exactly the promise of the Oz Bike uh, Trails Bike Park, Bella Vista's lift uh, accessed downhill park. It's a whole new chapter in Arkansas mountain biking, and that's true. Goes on to say it's a genuine resort style lift that makes the experience faster, more comfortable, more accessible for a wider range of riders and non-riding spectators alike. Layer in the Bentonville context, the existing trail network, the cycling culture, the infrastructure that's been building for over a decade, and the Oz Trails is arriving into one of the most bike receptive communities in the country. Again, all that's true. Goes on to say, think golf pro shop, but for trail bikes. The eventual lodging possibilities as the draw of the park grows. So they're clearly looking at expanding this. It already has like concession area where you can buy things to eat and drink. But you notice the word here. Where is it? I think it goes back up here. Uh, yes, resort style lift. And that is an interesting choice of words. They're definitely making this so as to draw tourists here, and they're doing it, you know, kind of in luxury style, kind of in a resort mentality. They want to create a resort feel to these mountain bike trails. So again, if you're a mountain bike purist, a nature purist, you see nature kind of taking a back seat here, and the resort style park, almost like a Walt Disney kind of thing, uh, placing emphasis on the resort rather than the nature that is being enjoyed. Being outside and enjoying the trees and all of that. Instead, it has a feel of golf pro shop, uh, restaurants, you know, lodging, hotels, all that sort of stuff. Okay, now this gets down into a breakdown of the hours of the lift and the park. It says here hours, closures, and what to expect. And this will become important in a minute when I talk about the membership aspect of this particular bike park. So it says the lift runs daily from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. All right, daily, 10 to 7. The park is closed, however, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So there's that. So out of 7 days, they're closed. And obviously, it's for trail work and maintenance. If you're going to have something like this, obviously, you're going to need to maintain it. And that takes time as well. So right there, you're looking at 5 days where or I should say 2 days where the park is definitely closed. That schedule leaves 5 riding days a week, Thursday through Monday. And with the lift running from 7 until 7 p.m., there's plenty of room for after work laps once summer settles in. So I guess they envision people coming home from work and then loading up their bike and then going out there to ride. Well, let's see. Yeah, the sun is still up. If you get out there, so if you work till 5, and by the time you get out to the park with all the traffic and everything, it's going to be at 6 o'clock, and so you may get an hour's worth of lift time. So that maybe what, one or two runs. And so again, if you're Monday, or I'm sorry, Thursday through Monday, so there's what, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, 3 days of those five are work days. So your options are going to be limited if you try to bike ride on after work on those days. This is interesting. I was looking through Facebook and I found lots of comments. Most of them were of the positive or in the positive, but there were some interesting ones here, and I just want to kind of go through these. I've highlighted what I think is the more interesting thing. Some people were talking about the environmental impact, and this person just says the animals are fine. So clearly not worried or has not worried about the animals, has no real concerns about their well-being. Next person says this park actually preserves and ensures that trees on the hillside won't be cut down. So there might be some truth to that. But then this guy replies, home builders used to work with the land to build houses. Now lots are veritably stripped mined. I used to build houses in the village and I have seen the destruction. No, don't try to say this is better. The large scar going up the hillside says differently. And this other guy chimes in, now there's a huge scar. So people are noticing the impact on the landscape that this construction has had. It could, of course, like any construction over time, things will grow back. So it may be, I'm sure it will be prettier later on than it is now. I mean, that's kind of the expectation. And this person chimes in, it's 200 acres that people can now enjoy. This person says, uh, the bike lift corridor is probably less than 2 acres and will bring in tons of much needed tax dollars to the city of Bella Vista. Again, that's definitely true. Other things people are talking about, it's what this guy just says, thanks for killing off more habitat, gross project. And so there are people out there who are skeptical about whether or not this is really good for the environment. It's certainly good for the sport, it's good for tax money and things of that sort, but what's the environmental impact going to be here? And it's probably a little too early to tell, but we'll see. We'll see. Just another example of the Waltons buying cities and their city councils. So people aren't too happy with the Waltons, using their all their wealth to create places like this. They first created Crystal Bridges, which is a world class museum. A lot of people had problems with that, not with the museum per se, but what the effects of the museum would be on this small area. And that has certainly been the case. You have a new Walmart campus that looks like something that you would see at Google or Apple. It's huge, and you're seeing people from all over the country move here. We have a booming rate of a population increase, I should say, and it really is losing or has lost really its small town feel. The traffic is just horrendous uh, along I-49 and between Fayetteville and Bentonville and around the city as well. Other comments here, Arkansas for the rich and famous, and I'll talk more about that here in just a second. Waltons uh, are turning into a playground. I can't playground for the wealthy. Uh, when we talk about the membership stuff, you'll see where that comment's coming from. Other things here, just keep the bikes away from the buffalo. Now that is very important because right now there are bike trails in the upper buffalo, and people go out there and ride bikes, do the mountain biking out there. So this guy's a little late to the party. The bike trails are there in the buffalo. Yeah, here's where we get into some comments about the price. So if you're out there for a day and you're out there all day, a pass for the lift is going to run you about $60. So $60 just to ride a lift at this mountain bike park. That's a lot. That is a lot of money. Uh, Particularly, you got a lot of kids, into mountain biking, and these kids are not going to be able to have access to $60, you know, every weekend. So clearly, that amount, when they set that price, I'm sure they had in mind the parents paying this particular lift fee. It's not the kids. If they thought the kids were having to pay this, it wouldn't be $60. But they're anticipating with that price point of parents paying that much. That's why they charged it. This is specifically for rich families because who has all the money laying around for kid motorbikes and gear? Again, the bikes are expensive, the gear is expensive, the lift is expensive, and the memberships are expensive. This comment or these comments go to the e-bike situation. It says, "Yeah, I love seeing the cigarette smoking, overweight, very serious athletes cruising along the trail, slamming beers and humming along. It's just great." So obviously being a little sarcastic there and a little hyperbolic, but he's talking about e-bikes, and with e-bikes you don't have to work as hard. They say, that's obviously their goal is to make the riding less strenuous for the rider. Any form of powered vehicle should be banned on nature trails. And then a person replies, "Who cares? E-bikes, mountain bikes, who cares?" But there are some purists out there who see these e-bikes as kind of not what mountain bike trails were made for. And for whatever reason, there could be safety reasons out there. E-bikes may present a certain safety hazard that mountain bikes don't. I don't know, but that could be part of it. Again, continuing, e-bikes are here to stay, but like a lot of things, they're a fad and will die down. That may be true. People may use them right now, but in a year or two, maybe you won't see any e-bikes out there. That's certainly possible. One guy says, "Fight the power." uh, but the trails are way more crowded. I'm sorry, but the trails are way more crowded, and all the tech features have been removed for the sake of the flow. Now, I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that, but obviously, having e bikes allowed on the trails is going to create more riders on the trail. Fire roads may not be a bad place for e bikes, talking about alternative locations. And this person signs off by saying, "No, resist the trend." So, a lot of people, you know, not keen on the whole e bike situation. Again, another article. Let's see, what is this from? Oh, Outside Online. This is Outside Magazine again. It says this comment here: "It's not really okay to be anti e bike anymore. Most of us know or love people who ride them, many of whom couldn't or wouldn't ride them otherwise." And that's a fair point. A lot of people who want to get out may not be physically able to, and e bikes are a great solution for those. But I imagine anybody on a mountain bike trail, uh, e-bike on a mountain bike trail, don't have any physical limitations. You don't get on a mountain bike trail with an e-bike or with any bike if you have some sort of physical handicap, because you're definitely going to get cooked if you try to ride a bike and you're not physically able to. Should we all just submit to our e-bike mountain bike future? Electronic mountain bikes are no longer anomalies on the trail, and some say they'll soon outnumber traditional bikes. If you feel like that's escalated quickly, you're not alone. So again, there's that beef that I talked about between purists and e-bike riders. And there you see the website for the Lift Serve Bike Park. And we're going to jump in here and see some of the details from the website. So they're really hyping it. First time, well, they're really hyping it. Arkansas's first Lift Serve Bike Park. So, and there you see the hours. I mentioned those already. Uh, Gives a little bit of a forecast, like if it's crowded, not crowded, that sort of thing. And I guess right there you got like a little lift cam showing that there's not many people. Well, it is Thursday afternoon at 2:20. So Makes sense. But it is summertime, so it is surprising there aren't more people there. Okay, here we go. It said Ride Unlimited memberships, unlimited lift access every operating day, build monthly, sign up online, and ride the same day. So a solo membership, this is $129 for one rider per month. All right, that's per month. And on the other side, it says family memberships is $250 per month, whole household. That includes two adults and kids under 18. All right. So if you have three kids under 18, um, this might not be a bad thing, but I would imagine at that price point, this is about the only thing your kids are going to be doing. I mean, if you're spending $250 a month on this hobby, are you really going to want to take your kids out to eat very often or do other things in addition to this $250 bike park thing? So I wonder about that. And it says unlimited lift access whenever the park is open. You get 15% off guest passes. So that's interesting. Member only previews and events, flexible month to month billing, cancel anytime. So that's good. You're not locked in for like a contract or a year or something. All right. Some more details here. Full day pass, as we talked about, $60, half day, 35, a single month pass, 30 days from first scan, no subscription required. So if you just want to do it for a month, 149 bucks. You don't have to subscribe or anything. And it says here, interesting, pedal day, all day, pedal up only, no lift access. So if you just want to use the park and walk up the hill after you ride, 20 bucks. Park rules here. Let's kind of look at this real quick. Probably some pretty uh, common sense stuff, helmets, uh, things about the lift. It said load and unload the lift independently. Child carriers not permitted, so can't have that. Now, this is something about the e-bikes. It says e-bike class one only are allowed, and other sorts of like one wheel or unicycles are prohibited. Makes sense. Recommended children 12 and under be accompanied by an adult. That makes sense. Pets must be leashed. Again, makes sense. All bikes must have a minimum tire size of 20 inches and not exceed 4.5-inch tire width. Interesting. No outside alcohol allowed in the park or the parking lot. Drone use is prohibited, so you can't be flying drones. Again, all of this makes perfect sense given the environment that you have. Uh, let's see. Mountain Biker Responsibility Code. Stay in control, know your limits, protect yourself, inspect your equipment, be lift smart, inspect trails and features, obey all signage, be visible, yield appropriately, act responsibility or responsibly. So clearly, you've got to uh, do the right thing out here. Common sense sort of stuff, though. No reckless behavior is going to be tolerated. Detailed policies. If you have a collision or incident, check for injuries, assist others, exchange contact information. That's interesting to me. Notify bike patrol immediately. So I guess they've got like bike police. It says there, exchange contact information. That is interesting to me because does that mean if you T-bone somebody that it's not just it's an accident, didn't mean to do it, but now you going to have people expecting other people to pay for damage to their bikes? If someone's got a $6,000 carbon bike, now if you run into them on accident, uh, do you have to now pay for the damage? I don't know, but that is interesting to me. Exchange contact information. I'm not quite sure what that entails. Failure to report an incident may result in a loss of access. Again, that ties back in with exchange information. Rental equipment, you got to be responsible, normal wear and tear is expected. No damage due to misuse will be allowed, or you get charged for it. Report any issues with equipment before riding. Commercial photography and videography, promotion, all commercial and third party media activities require prior written approval. That is if you're going to do any promotional or advertising content, use models, actors, or staged setups, content intended for public distribution. Proof of insurance is required. If you're going to be a film crew or something, you have to have insurance. Filming outside operating hours requires approval. All trail closures must be respected. You just can't go filming anywhere. You see where it says here, use of models, actors, or stage setups. This is very similar to the rules that govern photography use, commercial photography use, uh, at national parks. If you're going to do photo shoots, if you're going to have models and things like that, you have to have park permission. It seems to be the case that they're following the same guidelines here. No smoking is a smoke and vape free property, so no vaping. Strictly prohibited weapons. You can't bring firearms, knives, blades, what have you. Cashless facility. In other words, better make sure you got your debit card with you. They will, however, take cash tips. So there's that. Right of refusal, of course, like any place, they have the right to refuse people's access if they're acting in ways that violate these policies. So there you go. There is the Oz Trail uh, bike website. The thing that gets me, though, the most is going to be the price point. This is some expensive stuff, and there is a clear barrier there. If you look at the population of Northwest Arkansas, you're going to know that a lot of kids, a lot of kids will not be able to access this park given those prices. It's just not going to happen. This is clearly uh, oriented toward a wealthier upper class, upper income, I should say, group, and you know that that's not good. If you're going to build stuff like this for the community, you better make sure the community can really access it. And I I just don't think at those price points you're really opening it to the community, because that's, one day pass, $60. Now you can pay $20 to, you know, walk up the hill, ride up the hill on your own bike under your own power. But, you're going to, of course, the rich kids are going to take the lift. The poor kids are going to walk. It's, I don't know. That's not a good look. So I'm really curious to see what sort of changes will come in the future. Will they reduce the amount of the membership fees? Are they going to have events where people who can't afford a $60 pass, are you going to have events where they can come visit and enjoy the park like everybody else without, going broke in the process? I don't know. So we'll see how that all unfolds. The next topic I'd like to turn to is the BOLT Act. And the BOLT Act has a lot to do with federal legislation that will impact the Ouachita Mountain area, in particular, the Ouachita Trail. So that's going to be our next topic. So give me a minute and I will shift gears here and we'll be back in just a second. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you again. And I want to take a look at this this particular new piece of legislation. Actually, it's not that new. It's been around for a while, and it is called the Bolt Act. Now, this article was published earlier this month, but the Bolt Act itself has been a thing since last year, sometime in 2025. So, I've gone through in a fairly detailed fashion to point out some of the aspects of this Bolt Act. It says now a federal outdoor recreation law could bring a new or could bring new national attention to one of the state's classic long distance rides. The the biking along the Long Distance Trail Act, better known as the Bolt Act, became law in January of 2025. The law directs federal land management agencies to identify existing long distance bike trails and place them or and places where similar trails could be developed and completed. For Arkansas, the most important name in that conversation is the Ouachita National Recreation Trail, the OT. Uh, the OT already meets the basic distance threshold for consideration. So the Ouachita Trail is about 224 miles, something like that. And it already has sections. There are places along that trail where bike riding is allowed. And what they're looking at now is possibly expanding that. And that's what this Bolt Act does. It says right here it creates a federal process for recognizing long distance bike routes and identifying what those trails need to better serve riders and nearby communities. It's there. It's going to create a catalog of at least 10 existing long distance bike trails, develop an inventory of at least 10 areas where long distance trails could be developed or completed, coordinate with stakeholders, identify needs for signage, maps, promotional materials, and report those findings to Congress. A national catalog can help riders discover routes, give gateway communities a stronger connection to the growing bike packing and long distance uh, mountain biking audience. So this is not just about mountain biking. This is about gravel riders and using parts of these trail systems to be incorporated into longer distance trails. It refers to friends of the Ouachita Trail list 108 miles of the route as open to mountain biking. So right now, half the trail is open to mountain biking, and that's a pretty big chunk. Did not think it was that much. I was thinking more in terms of maybe 30 to 50 miles of it, but clearly about half of it is. It says that makes the Ouachita Trail a strong candidate for Bolt attention. It is long, remote, predominantly natural surface, already recognized by mountain biking community and tied to communities that will benefit from outdoor recreational travels. This trail was first constructed not with mountain bikes in mind, but with hikers in mind. There are shelters along this trail, and you can, if you're hiking, you typically are going to hike anywhere from 10 to 20 miles a day, and you have shelters that hikers can stay in. This is going to be a problem for hikers, and I'll tell you why. If you have mountain bikers or these bike packers on these trails, what's going to end up happening is, well, obviously bikes can move faster on a trail than a hiker can. So if you have bike packers out there and they get to the shelters first, then the backpackers are always going to lose that battle. They are rarely going to be the ones that are going to be able to claim use of the shelter if you have a lot of bike packers out there, because a bike packer can cover the same distance in much shorter time, and they can get to the shelter and hang out and get set up and everything. And then a few hours later, the hikers come in and they're always going to be out of luck. That is a concern that I have here. You're going to open up more of this trail, or you're going to promote more of this trail to bike packers, and I'm afraid that uh, there's going to be a conflict there. Just like you saw mountain bikers having a problem with e-bikes on mountain bike trails, I think you're going to have backpackers having a problem with bike packers on the Ouachita Trail and any other trail. We have the Ozark Highland Trail. It's gosh, it's been expanded, but the original trail is 164 miles. Um, I'm not sure how mountain bike worthy that is, but I could see parts of it becoming that way. It says the Ouachita Trail is not a flow trail, and it was not built as a modern mountain bike park experience. That is very true. I just mentioned that. It is a rugged backcountry trail that rewards preparation, fitness, patience, and respect for changing trail conditions. It requires a strong commitment to expedition style mountain biking and camping. The system of trail shelters, log cabin style shelters with sleeping space and porches located roughly every 10 miles along the epic section. For bike packers, that infrastructure is a major advantage. And there it is right there. Bike packers will be focusing on this. If you're riding a bike on the Ouachita Trail, you have no interest in carrying a backpack with a tent. And so they are really going to make sure that they get, first dibs on those shelters. Shelters can reduce the need for carrying as much overnight gear and provide welcome coverage during multi-day trips. They are available on a first come, first served basis and should not be treated as guaranteed lodging. I don't know. Bike packers will carry tents, that is true, but still, if you have an option of staying in the shelter versus staying in the tent, you're going to take the shelter typically, unless there are mice or some other problem with the shelter. And of course, yes, this Bolt Act will, communities will stand to benefit. There's no doubt about that. National attention through the Bolt Act process could help connect more riders to lodging, food, bike shops, shuttle options, and other visitors services in these communities. It could also strengthen the case for better mapping, signage, and long-term trail stewardship. There you have it, folks. In a nutshell, you're going to see the Bolt Act probably really increase the number of riders on the Ouachita Trail. You're going to have more people there. You're going to have more of an economic boon, which isn't bad. But I have nothing against mountain bikers on these trails, really. But I can see where mountain bike riders, these bike packers, will treat the trail more as an obstacle course and less like a natural environment to enjoy solitude. I don't think you're going to have that same mindset. The hiker mindset versus the biker mindset are going to be two separate mindsets, and I see conflict there. And then you throw in, of course, the shelter situation, and bike packers are always going to have the advantage on getting to those shelters and that sort of thing. So I can see that as being another source of another issue between bikers and hikers sharing the trail. Okay, this episode has gone on a long time, and I like to bring it to an end. I really appreciate you um, staying around and watching and taking in the information. If you have comments on this, and I'm sure people do have comments that they would like to share, by all means, put them in the comments section below to to further the conversation and get input from others from across the state. How all of this will turn out, who knows? Mountain biking right now could be just a fad. I remember when I was a kid in Little Rock, we had the first ever skateboard park called Skater Town, and it was a big deal. And everybody and their dog was buying skateboards and going to the skate park. It was crowded. You had to have a membership there, or not a membership, but you had to pay a entry fee, and then you skate all day, that sort of thing. Everybody could afford that. It wasn't anything crazy expensive at all. But as time went by, as the years went by, there were fewer and fewer participants, and eventually the park went bankrupt. Now, that's not to say that this will happen at the bike park necessarily. I think the bike park has a much stronger chance of success and that sort of thing. But who knows? It's a big investment. They're charging big bucks to keep it up and running. But I'm also afraid that those fees, those park memberships, are too steep for the majority of people who would like to use it to use it. We'll see. It's all going to play out over time, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you back here at the Arkansas Outdoor Roundup. Goodbye.